A good contract is worth its weight in gold. Are you a creative entrepreneur who contracts your services to others? Well, listen up, because this is for you. The Smithers Law Group has created 14 master contracts specifically for creative entrepreneurs. These contracts are industry specific, they're fully customizable, and you only pay a one-time fee. This is so much better and more affordable than speaking with an attorney who is going to charge you an hourly consultation fee, and it's so much more secure than just Googling up your contract and hoping for the best. Find your fully customizable and industry-specific contract at stulawgroup.com. Search for the contract link. And don't forget to tell them that I sent you. Welcome back to Impostrix Podcast. I'm here with Tanya, who is a fellow podcaster. You actually have heard her voice before because during my off season between seasons 1 and 2, I aired a crossover episode where Tanya hosted me on her podcast, Tea with Tanya, and we talked about imposter syndrome. I'm really happy to have Tanya on the podcast finally to talk about women's health issues, and how we navigate those as working people, as professionals, because it can be so difficult for us to have boundaries. Well, for me, I'll speak for myself, to have boundaries with work and the other things going on in my life and prioritize my health. So, Tanya, welcome. Can you introduce yourself? Give us your name, of course, and what you do and your podcast stuff. Give us all the information.
Oh, you put me on the spot now, honey. First of all, let me say I am so happy to be here in the Impostrix room. It's been, I want to say, one of my goals. So when you ask, it's like, oh, she finally thought of me, but it's happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm a person that I do the most. So I'm Tanya and do the most, Ambrose at this point in time. But I am a fellow podcaster. I'm the host of the Tea with Tanya podcast. I'm also the founder and CEO of the nonprofit organization Scrub Life Cares, where we work towards removing the stigma surrounding menstrual period poverty and providing education as it relates to reproductive health as well. And I'm also a public health professional working in the maternal and child health sector. I'm also a birth and postpartum doula, a certified lactation counselor. I'm just doing the most. I do the most, but all for a good reason, because I am very passionate about women's health. And I think this current season of my life, I'm working towards being intentional as it relates to my health and wellness, because I was of the mind that, I'm from the Caribbean and we have a much more healthier lifestyle there. And, I'm this slim person. I can't really say the same right now because I am not that slim anymore. But yes, trust me, if you see me like 5 years ago, like, oh my goodness, you need to eat. But nevertheless, I just decided after having some complications, like, chronic migraines and other things, I decided to be very intentional about my health and wellness journey. And that's what I share on the podcast and just share in my everyday life, because it's very important, especially as a Black woman in the United States, as a Black immigrant woman as well. It's very important that I learn or know how to advocate for myself, or just be more in tune with my body, because the society that we're living in right now, child, is rough. It's a rough society, So definitely got to make sure we're educated. And so, because I always say an educated individual will always be empowered. So that's key. But yeah, so that's me, Tanya, doing the most, but I love it. All for good reason, all about community.
Yeah. And you're Antiguan?
Antiguan, not the Guan. I was just, it's funny you said that. I was just having a discussion with a friend last night, because I guess people wanted to argue about the Guan. It's like, oh, it came from a Spanish word. I say, I'm telling you, it's Antigua. We have never said Antigua before. So I am an Antiguan. I know it spells the G-U-A, may probably give it away for it to be Gua, but it's literally just Antigua, So putting that disclaimer out there.
Thank you for correcting me. Antigua. So Antiguan. Antiguan.
Antiguan.
All right. Okay. Just ignore the U altogether.
Yes. Antigua.
And you have an event coming up, right? In Antigua.
Yes. It's our third annual Grow the Flow Women's and Health Expo. Well, Women and Girls Health Expo, because we do cater to individuals from ages 8 and up. But we realized that we've had parents and even siblings bring their baby sisters or brothers, like from 5 and up. So this year we're gearing up to ensure that we're catering to every age group, because it's just it feels good to give back to the community. Because I always say, when I first migrated here to the US, which is about to be almost 15 years. Wow. Oh my goodness. Yes. It's about to be 15 years since I've migrated to the United States. And I always said, when I moved here, I wanted to give back to Antigua in some way, shape, or form, because I'm of the mind that how I was raised and where I was raised prepared me to be able to survive in many different cultures for some reason. That's also my belief. So I thought I had to be a millionaire. Not quite there yet, Whitney, but I'm on the way. I'm working towards it. But I thought I had to be a millionaire in order for me to give back to my country. And, it turns out I didn't have to. I'm still trying to be there, got to get that coin up. But my goal was always, growing up, seeing my parents, especially my mom, give back to people in the community. So it just feels good to give back to Antigua, but specifically the village that I was raised in Antigua. So that's where we have the event on Grow with the Flow. And you guys can donate. And I'm sure we'll put that in the show notes if you want to support our organization by buying menstrual hygiene products. Definitely check our website out and, give back.
You mentioned something when you were talking about the event that's coming up, which is that the event was initially for people 8 years and up, but people are bringing their little siblings, relatives, whoever, starting at age 5. And this just reminds me of a conversation I had recently with my dermatologist and the PA who was in the room. And I was complaining about all my body aches at 36 years old. And I was telling the doctor, who was probably my mother's age, I was like, you know what? I don't think y'all adequately prepared us for what's happening with our bodies. I didn't think that my body was going to start hurting and different things were going to start changing in my body until I was, quote, middle-aged. And here I am, 36 years old. Me and all my friends are constantly texting each other about whatever is happening with our bodies today. And I just am like, the generation before us, did you have women in your life who were talking to you about specifically 30s, early 40s, pre-menopause?
No, not at all. And I remember, I don't think I had the conversation about even periods with my mom. I just remember one year we were on vacation in New Jersey visiting one of our family members. And me being me, I'm very nosy people. If you're listening, Tanya, I like to say I'm a research queen, but I'm very nosy. And my ear is always cocked to the side when it has no business to. And I just remember overhearing my aunt and my mom talking. And my aunt asked my mom, have you spoken to her about her period yet? Or did she get her period yet? And she's like, no. And then my mom told her, I got mine when I was either 12 or 13. My aunt was saying the same thing. So I just knew, again, that it was something that was going to happen. And what a coincidence that same year, I think, when I went home, because my mom was away having my youngest sister. And I went home and it happened. And I was like, okay, who am I going to, again, I knew what I had to do. So instead of going to my grandmother at the time, I went to my older cousin at the time, because she has a period and her and I were really close. So I remember telling her, and she's like, okay, this is what you're going to do. So you put your pad on, and then I went to the store to go get some extra because we didn't have any. And I never told my grandmother anything for that first menstrual cycle at all. Yeah. And then one day, because like I said, my mom was still away with my sister. And the next month when it came around again, and this is why I tell people all the time, I have period trauma. It's also why I'm so passionate about period poverty and just menstruation as a whole, because didn't tell my grandmother and had an accident at school. An accident. Luckily for me, I went to an all-girls school.
Oh, yeah.
So an all-girls high school, and I remember we had this rule in high school that whenever we were sitting down, whenever a teacher entered the classroom, we had to stand up. I don't know why, but I guess it's all a part of the discipline, I guess, Yeah. And I remember standing up, and my friend who was sitting behind me, she's like, girl, you're on your period, XYZ. Anyway, they took me to the bathroom, washed my uniform out and whatnot. But apparently, once it dried, I still had a little bit of a stain of the blood on the back of my uniform. So when I got home to my grandma's house, and then, took the uniform on, put it in the dirty hamper and everything, she saw it. She's like, girl, why you didn't tell me? And then she, did her variation of the talk,
Yeah.
But I just never had that conversation. It was not something that we had. Then growing up with all sisters, I'm also an older sister. And I remember,
wow.
Yeah. I have an older sister and I'm, the other oldest. But I remember them having their periods, and me and my cousin, we found this book randomly. I don't know where we found a book about periods. And my cousin brought it over to my sister, and we just had that conversation. So we were essentially the advocates for them, or the educators as it relates to periods based on our knowledge. Because again, we didn't really have that conversation with our mom. Because to be honest, in my culture, and also the Caribbean culture, sometimes, you get a period, the first thing they think about is don't have sex or don't get pregnant. Nothing else. So we're not thinking about maybe the abnormalities such as, extreme cramping or excess bleeding or heavy bleeding, these different things. We weren't told about that. We were just told about don't be fast, don't have sex, because once you see your period, it's time to get pregnant.
Yeah.
That's what the thinking is around that. And even to this day, to some extent, it's still that way. That's why, again, for me, I'm trying to break the stigma, and even other organizations in the Caribbean about, let's just talk about period. It's more to it than just sex. Because for me, I had friends who had really bad periods, Whitney. When I say bad, like they would vomit. It was just bad.
Wow.
But we just thought that for some reason, I don't know why, but we just thought it was normal. We just, what, this person, okay, it's time of the month.
They just get sick.
They're going to get sick. They're going to miss school, or they're going to just be thrown up at school. And we just honestly thought it was normal. And that same friend, turns out today now she has endometriosis, and another one has PCOS. So again, we're missing these marks or these cues because, again, for some reason in society, as a woman, you ate the forbidden fruit. So we deserve the types of pain or treatment that we get in society. And it's a messed up way in which and how we think. But I mean, what can we do? Like you say, you're talking to your friends about different things that you probably should have known when you were younger. Even me, like I tell people, even though I'm still doing this work, I learn something every single day. When I'm doing some sort of research, individuals are having periods earlier and earlier now. And parents are just not open or ready to have that conversation. So with our event and the organization as a whole, we serve as that bridge to try to educate parents, or let them know, what, this is a waste, normal cycle of life. Let's just not try to force sex upon our menstruators. But also, if we are going to mention or talk about sex, of course, we want to make sure that it's talked about in a age appropriate manner. Because we did Scrub Life case and our event back home, because we cannot shy away again from the culture. We cannot shy away from sex. Is why we're fighting for comprehensive sexual education in our schools, because again, we're just told you get a period, put on a tampon, do whatever, don't have sex, don't get pregnant, or go on birth control because I don't want to deal with you being a teen mom or getting pregnant, during your too much, I guess, as younger than your mom when she first had you. And it's like, okay, I get that, but also again, if we provide the education, we can be better informed so that we can make decisions that are best for us. And I think that's what we lack in just across our boards with the healthcare industry, or just in general. When we lack information or education, we just don't know. And we're making decisions that maybe not be as informed, or telling us what social media tell us to do. Oh, I saw this on TikTok. That's a big thing. One of my friends was like, oh, I saw this on TikTok. And I'll say the same thing too, because it's a part of our lives. Yeah. But I think for me, sometimes I don't want to be the Debbie Downer. Like, that's not accurate, because I found myself being that way. I'm like, social media can be fun too, but when things are being taken out of proportion, I have to step in and be like, this is not accurate, because we're in a world where young people, or people in general, they're just seeing things on social media. There's no fact checking. This person has X amount of followers, so whatever you say, I can be easily influenced by you. So I have a love and hate relationship when it comes to social media as a healthcare professional, because it's just like, okay, and I get it, but at the same time, let me make sure it's evidence-based,
Yeah. I think till this day, it's still the case in, the community that I'm in, at least, that we don't talk about periods. And well, let me retract that. We don't talk about the entire cycle, both in terms of what the menstruation cycle is and what that makes up, but also in terms of our life cycle and what to expect with women's health, along the different ages. And so much of what my friends and I are talking about, like I said, is health. Everything from abnormal periods and menstruation to backaches and knee aches and I can't wear heels anymore because XYZ, and, procedures that we're having to go through. And, now it's about time some of us are taking mammograms and starting to be screened for different kinds of cancers. And, all of this can be traumatizing.
Yeah.
When we have no idea what to expect. Nobody has ever talked to us. Like, we literally didn't think that we had to deal with, quote, old people problems until we were, quote, old people.
Yeah.
And now we're realizing that we are. Like, there's no in the middle. For me, it felt like I was 22 and like all good. I was fit. I was, and then I was 33. And
how I feel right now, because I am 33. And I was like, okay, the little weight that I'm putting on, I said, I know about, when you age, you gain a little weight, but I was not prepared still. I wasn't prepared for the change in hormones as I was leaving my 20s into my 30s, or just the different things that come as we age. And again, that education, we just know, okay, by the time you get to maybe 40, 50, you can expect to go into in menopause. I was like, okay, let's talk about premenopause, or let's just talk about all this. And again, I don't think the education surrounding the lifespan it's not there. We're just thrown to the wolves. Make sure you eat, make sure you drink your water, pay your bills, do whatever, and then that's it. And sometimes it's not always the case.
And I'll also say that I think because we're not talking about what happens, at age 30 or at age 35, when we are having to go to the doctor to do these things, we're feeling like, oh, something's really wrong with me. Like I'm on Google and my symptoms say I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily want to tell anybody because I feel like I'm unique. Come to find out, so many other people are experiencing this exact same thing. And so what I'd love to talk to you about today, as we're talking about women's health, is how we can set boundaries for ourselves with work, but also with people in our lives to protect ourselves and give us that space to be able to take the time that we need to go to the doctor if we need to go to the doctor, to take a mental health day if we need to take a mental health day, to work from home because our cramps are that bad that we don't feel like we can get out of bed, or to, I know by this age, many of us, so early mid 30s, many of us know what to expect from our bodies during, at least during the time that we're menstruating. And so we know, like, we might have a whole set of clothes just for when we're menstruating.
Yes,
that are looser, that are dark colored, that feel more comfortable. But yeah, I'm interested to hear from you as far as setting these boundaries, because it can be so difficult for us, one, to even just stop and like feel our bodies, like be in our bodies, to feel what's happening and to feel what we need. But then once we are doing that, or we're forced to do that because we've been ignoring something, how do we go to our employers and to our colleagues and to our friends or family members and say, look, I just need a second. Like, I need a day. Hey, y'all. So let's switch gears for just a minute. We talk so much about empowerment of folks of color on this show. And now I want to take a second to talk about our legacy. It's so important that as we're out here doing our thing and making that money and trying to be the people that we want to be for our communities and families, that we get our estate plan together. And I know estate planning can be overwhelming. We've got your back. Our team is here to guide you every step of the way. Wills for the People is an estate planning practice that prioritizes creating and advancing generational wealth, particularly within families of color and middle-class families. This is because it's so important that we just get started. So, what do you want your legacy to be? And what steps have you taken to ensure that that happens? Take those steps with Wills for the People, where intentional planning meets transformative results. Visit our website for your free consultation at willsforthepeoplega.com. Mention Impostrix Podcast and we'll give you 10% off of your package. All right, I'll see you over there. Let's get back to the show.
I think that question, I don't want to say it's a hard question, but for me, I'll give you an example for me. Because I think, again, balancing life, we have to balance life, Whitney. We have to balance having, some of us have full-time jobs. In your case, you have children. I don't. But at the same time, work can be a lot. And then as a woman, if you are a woman you're pregnant, you have to go to your weekly appointments, depending on if you're high risk, low risk, so where you are in your pregnancy. You may be someone who may have extreme periods, that's, like extreme cramping. Like I mentioned earlier, a friend of mine who throws up every single period. Like, these are things that we're dealing with. Some of us may have 3 to 7 day periods. Some of us may end up having bleeding throughout the month. That's the thing too. Because again, you're still trying to figure out your diagnosis. So as a woman, and then I think we don't talk about our mental health when it comes to our menstruation as well. Not only menstruation, but as a woman in general. And I think it's very challenging as a woman to find that work-life balance, because again, some employees or employers, they may not understand, especially, I'm gonna say this, if you're a man, you don't understand what it is that we go through on a regular basis. I often joke and say that as a woman, we have one good week out of a month to be quote unquote normal. And even then, it's not normal because our hormones are changing. But I think a way we can advocate for ourselves as when it comes to our jobs is to, I'll say, be transparent, have that communication, because effective communication is key, especially when it comes to discussing any sort of health-related issues that you as an employer or employee may be having. If you're a person like me who's very sociable when it comes to my coworkers, because most of my coworkers, they are friends, you want to ensure that you have someone who can support you. Because for me, I'm big on community, I'm big on support. Again, today I could be happy, the next day I could be sad, because lives, So I think we have to ensure that we're speaking up, be clear, be direct. Sometimes I say even be assertive, because at the end of the day, my thinking or my philosophy is, if I were to get sick and I have to be out for months, if I were to get released from my job, you're going to find someone else in my place rather quickly, right? So you want to ensure that if you have underlying health conditions as well, you want to ensure that you're telling your employer or your manager, your directors that, okay, you know what, I'm coming into this job, but I have a XYZ chronic illness or chronic disease that I have to be out of the office once or twice a week, or I have to work from home. And, if that's the case, a certain time of the week. For me, let me tell this, Whitney. One thing about me, I used to be ashamed to talk about my chronic migraines, because I'm like, you know what? Again, I'm from the Caribbean. You're supposed to be a strong Black woman, or you're supposed to be, pushing through your pain or pushing through. Like I used to always live by, you know what? Just push through, and then after you're done, you can rest. But I realized that my migraines, when they're here, because I have levels to my migraine, but when they're here, I'm done for the day. Sometimes I'm even done for the week because of how severe my migraine is. So I think, I encourage listeners to look at your workplace policies as well, because sometimes we think, okay, yeah, we're women. They know I got periods. They know I'm pregnant. They know whatever. They're going to understand. That is not the case. It's important that you read the fine print. Read those workplace policies to ensure that your job is catering to your needs as a woman. If you're someone who can have flexible work arrangement, like you said, Whitney, we have telecommuting. I'm going to be at home 3 days out of the week. I'll come to the office once or twice, because you know what? That's what I can handle. And as far as a mental health day, let me tell you. One thing about me, I'm going to have me a mental health day. And I don't know who's going to hear this podcast. I hope my managers are not listening. Sometimes my mental health day is not always going to be me being completely away from the job. I could be in the office or I could be at home, but I'm going to limit, I guess, how productive I am that day. And I'm just going to keep it real, because sometimes, of course, your work is important. You don't want to just keep taking off. And in my case, I have to go home for my event. I have a lot of things that I do at my nonprofit where I have to fly out ever so often. My PTO is not always going to be enough for me to be taking mental health days. So I often, I tell my manager, I'm like, today's a migraine day, or today I'm just not feeling it. Like one time I had my director tell me, I was at work and she's like, oh, why you look so down? I said, I'm not in the mood to be here today. Literally what I said to her. And she was like, you're going to tell your director that? I said, you want me to lie to you? Because sometimes they like to say that I'm too abrasive. But I'm like, well, do you want me to lie to you? I'm not going to be here acting like I want to be at work. No, I'm not telling you to do this with who the relationship that you have with your managers or your directors. But that day, I was having a bad day, and I said, I don't want to be here. And she's like, well, you're telling me that? I said, yes, I don't want to lie to you. And she told me, it's okay, just take the rest of the day. And she sent me home. So I guess, again, being upfront, ensuring, know what your limitations are. Because I don't care how much I love my job, Whitney. And again, I know when my limit has peaked. So it's time for me to tap out and do something else, or just not do anything at all. So we have to really and truly think about reframing our mindset surrounding self-care. Because sometimes, I'm sure you can relate, we feel guilty for missing work.
Oh, yeah.
We feel guilty for not being as productive as we would have been on a Monday versus a Wednesday or even a Friday. Because for me, Fridays are my days where I'm just going to keep it real. I'm going to be slow. We should not work on a Friday or Monday, either or. So since I got to work Monday to Friday, Friday's going to be my day when I'm just taking it at least a little bit easier than the other days in the week. Because I tend to go hard. I'm like, what? For me, I know what my limits are. So I'm just going to ensure that I communicate those needs when it comes to my managers or even my direct coworkers. Because again, what I do can also impact their work significantly. So you want to ensure that you're having that conversation, setting that boundaries, know your limits, know how many hours in an 8 to 9 hour day, or even 12, 15 hours that you can work, again. So I think the biggest thing I can say is just to have effective communication, check your workplace policy so that you can have that conversation ahead of time before you get into the job or the position, and then they have certain expectations of you, and you're not able to meet them. And lean into your flexibility. Again, if you're a nurse listening this, well, of course, you may not have the option to not work a full 12-hour shift, but of course, lean into how flexible your job is, because I think COVID taught us all that life is fickle. I mean, the society today is like life is fickle, but I think COVID really opened a lot of our eyes to see that we were really just going, myself included. Like, I was going to school full time in undergrad. I was working 2 jobs because I had this goal of, I want to have a house. I want to do X, Y, Z. And I kept pushing through. I kept pushing through my illness. I kept pushing through my migraines. I'm like, it's just a headache because I'm stressed from work in school, or I'm not getting enough sleep. Oh, I ignored my GI, my gastro issues that I had because I'm like, again, I'm just stressed out from work. I'm not eating. I'm not taking care of myself. When in fact, again, I was just trying to live up to an expectation from my managers, and I wasn't advocating for myself. So I'm tapped out. So I think COVID taught us that, one, those of us who are fortunate to have jobs where we can work from home some days and in the office, or even if you work remotely full time, you still do need a break again from that. Yeah. You still need a mental health day. You still need a day to I'm having really bad cramps. I can't work today. And that should be okay. Because I know in some places that you telling your manager, oh, I'm having really bad cramps today. It's like, okay, take a pill and keep it moving. I've seen that. I've experienced that when I used to have cramping. Even if mine were mild, but still headaches and periods don't go well together. And I've had an individual tell me, oh, take 2 Midol. I said, well, I can't take Midol because I'm allergic. Oh, take an ibuprofen. I can't take it. And, they started thinking that I was lying, but it's like, again, so I just think we need to get to a point in time or place where we can understand that as a woman, as a menstruating woman, as a woman who's going through menopause, who's breastfeeding, whatever your issue may be, I think those who are leaders should, I guess, express more empathy. And that's not what we're getting in the workplace. We have to just show up, work because we got a quota to meet. We have this deadline to meet, but then I'm burnt out and I can't perform. And then where does that leave me from a health standpoint, mental health? And then where does that leave me as an employee? Because you're going to say, no, we have to let you go because you've been absent too many times. When 4 weeks in a month, and of that 4 weeks, a week and a half, I'm just really messed up. So I think we have to get to a point where we promote that, understanding that our lives are changing. Again, that goes back to our education and understanding the lifespan of where we are. Where we were when we were in our teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, we are not the same. We're evolving in a way that we're not the same individual at 25. I know I'm not. I don't know about you. I'm not the same person at 25, health-wise, or even from a physical standpoint, to where I am now at 33. So I think once we remove that stigma and really educate society as to what it is that we go through, then, it'll make life better.
Yeah. And we all know if you're a woman or identify as a woman, like we know. And so I think the other thing, and the reason why I love this platform of podcasts, is that we can be thinking about, we don't need somebody to prove to us that they're having really bad pain.
Right.
Because most of us have experienced that. Or really bad headaches, or the combination of all of the things that are happening in our body, or that we're cranky today for whatever reason, or, some of what we are experiencing as people with uteruses is pretty universal. Like, we may have experienced this at some point in our life. We may have experienced back pain. And so your point about having more empathy, I think, really extends not only to us as supervisors and bosses, but as we're thinking about ourselves and what we need moving forward. And so I also appreciate your reframe around mental health days, because I take mental health days. I think a lot of my friends, the people that I'm around, take mental health days, but it's difficult for me to, if today is working, if I chose to go to work today, then today is not a mental health day. And so what I appreciated about what you said was, I may go to work, but I may have to adjust what my work day looks like based on what is going on with my body, whether that's mental health or whether that's physical health and, aches or pains or whatever that might be. Because I certainly feel guilty on days where I'm not as productive. But for the most part, days where I'm not as productive are days where I'm not feeling well, where I'm not, I'm just not up for it. And so there's times when I just can't get it going. And I spend much of that day feeling guilty or feeling shame. Even I work for myself now and I still feel that way.
No, listen to me.
I don't have a product that I have to show somebody. I work for myself. I set goals for myself. I work hard. And if I don't meet that goal, then I feel bad. And I want to make myself stay up late and work, that night. Instead, I need to be flexible and adapt to what my body is feeling today. And really on the days where I do have a lot of energy, like maximize what I'm doing those days and on other days not. And so tomorrow, for example, I have scheduled as an administrative day. So it's going to be a low energy day. I'm still going to be exhausted because I'm going to be dealing with things like invoicing and money and business licensure and all of these things. But it's not a day where I'm going to be interacting, where I have to put on makeup. Like I'm going to be in my pajamas all day, you know, that type of thing.
And you get to create that day because, again, we say we feel guilty. For me, getting to the place where I am right now, it took me. I'm just now. This isn't a new era for me because I'm an overachiever. My therapist, I said I'm an overachiever, and that mindset coming from the Caribbean, we often we have to work hard. We have to make sure that we are successful, and you just have this standard that you have to live up to, and nothing is wrong with that. But you have to, as you get old and as you mature and you're realizing how life is, you have to adjust your workload. For me, I work a full-time job. I go to school full-time in grad school. I have a nonprofit and I have a podcast. I'm a doula. Again, doing the most, but again, all for good reason. But I got to a point where I was burnt out from being a founder to my nonprofit. Like I was burnt out after our event last year. Whitney, I could not push myself to do anything. And that's not me because I call my nonprofit my baby, right? So I'm like, I don't have any kids, but that's my baby. I'm going to work in this X amount of hours a day or a week. And I was burnt out, but I kept trying to push through. And again, the migraine started acting up, the GI issues, and just my physical form was just like, you need to sit down. And I think that moment taught me that, when I go to work, I work from 8:30 to 5. So on a Monday, I'm a morning person, so I have no issues getting up early, doing that. But by midday, I'm tapped out for the day. So I'm having to reprogram or recalibrate my mind to obviously work through that. But it's okay. I don't want to say it's okay if we feel guilty, but understanding that as we become more in tune with our bodies, we know what we can handle. We should not be feeling guilty when it comes to rest. I saw something the other day that said rest is productive. And I was like, how, I've seen it before. I'm like, how is rest productive? But after having the experience, and you know what? Okay, I cannot record a podcast episode today because my mind is not there. And I'm the kind of person that even to post something on Instagram or social media as it relates to the podcast, if my energy behind that post is not 100%, the post is not going to perform well. I know it sounds crazy, but stay with me. If my energy, the same thing with an episode, if I'm uploading the energy when I'm actually clicking the audio to upload to my posting, my hosting website or whatever, if the energy behind that for me is not 100%, I have to give it a break, come back until I get to that point because it could just be my mind. But I feel like when I'm not giving myself 100% to what I'm doing, I cannot be productive or I cannot be as successful as I want to be. You know what I mean? So it's very important that you rest, recalibrate your mind and your body, and then you come back again because it's going to still be there. The task is going to still be there no matter what.
Yeah. Well, and I really want to touch on that point because I think it's really interesting. I've not really approached tasks in that way. And granted, there are some tasks that we can't wait around for our energy to be right,
Right.
But for things like podcasting or other hobbies or parts about our jobs that we actually like, and if we are finding ourselves low energy or not energetic about that specific thing at that specific time, it really does make a lot of sense to me to just wait until we do have the energy because that can help us avoid burnout, but also, I don't know if resentment is the right word, but
it is.
Right. Sometimes the things that we like to do feel like a chore.
Yes, that part.
And it's definitely feeling like a chore if I'm not with it. If I'm just not in the space to do the thing, no matter how big, no matter how small, But if it's something that we know that we like doing and we have time to wait, then yeah, I'm going to try just waiting until the energy is there.
So what I've been doing, I've been getting some little sticky notes. You can get them in different colors if you want. And what I do, I write down 4 to 5 tasks on that sticky note. Like one is for my job, one is for nonprofit, one is for podcast, and one is just for my personal life, what I'm going to eat today, what X, Y, Z. And I find that when I put these things on the sticky note, 4 or 5, it doesn't have to be more than that, 4 to 5, I'll put them in the order of my priority. And sometimes I may not even go with the top priority. I'll go with the one that's going to require less of my energy, less of my thinking, whatever it is. So once I can scratch something off of that sticky note, I end up feeling good about myself. So it's like a self-motivating factor because you know what? Okay, I'm not having this big plan where I have to have X, Y, Z from 5 a.m. to midnight outlined. And we become overwhelmed. And then that's how we end up stressing ourselves at work and just in our regular life. As a mom, get some sticky notes. Okay, I got to make lunch for my baby. I got to make sure I have this for baseball or football practice because, as a mom, I'm sure you have a lot of things, a lot of activities that you have to do in the week and on the weekend. So I guess, again, giving ourselves grace. I don't want to say stop trying to meet or set certain deadlines, but be flexible. It's all about being flexible again. We spoke about having flexibility at our jobs. We have to be flexible with ourselves as well. Because if we're not, then we're going to run ourselves down into the ground, aka me. Now I'm having to rebuild back my life and really being intentional about my health.
Yeah. And I'll say this last thing that I'm going to ask you, a final question. I recently, so I'll say that when I started working for myself, I thought that I would be working less.
Oh, girl, no.
Yeah, not at all the case. Somehow all my days are full, but they were becoming too full to the point of waking up every day. I was like stressed out for the things that I had. Yeah. So what I started doing was using one of those weekly planners where you can tear out the page when the week is done.
I like that.
I got it literally 2 years ago and never used it. But I am on Sunday nights writing down the key things for that week. So that one, I can know what's in store for that week and whether or not I might need to move some stuff around or cancel some stuff based on, how I think my energy is going to be, or if I have enough breaks, because I realized my natural stamina for talking meetings or for, I don't know, working on curriculum. Like I have less stamina now than I did when I was working for other people and needing to talk to other people all day long. Now I can't do that. It takes a lot of energy for me. So I have to space out my day between a talking meeting and a non-talking work task. But anyways, writing the week out for myself, like it's already in my Google Calendar.
Yeah.
But then writing it down on a piece of paper and giving myself opportunity to adjust. But it also lets me see and reflect on what's working and what's not working in terms of the amount of commitments and engagements that I'm giving myself every week or on a particular day. And that's just been really helpful for me to write down the things, but also reflect back so that next week I don't have to schedule how I did the week prior, or I can do certain thing. Like right now I'm doing somatic reflections on Monday mornings. And so really just keeping track of what's working, what's not working, what feels right for my body, what doesn't feel right for my body, what's going to make me be like sitting all day long versus things where I can get up and walk around. And thinking about all of those types of things has been really helpful. So I want to ask you, I actually have two more questions. The first question is, for those of us who love people with uteruses, what can we do and what can our role be in working with or supporting that person in advocating for their health needs?
I think for me, and I come to this question as a doula, because I often say as a doula, I am educating you about childbirth education, but my biggest thing is the support. So even though I'm your doula, I'm your part of your support system, we have to learn to navigate or have hard conversations. Again, communication is very key. I know it's maybe sounding redundant, but we have to women or people with uteruses, we have to communicate our needs to those who are part of our village or our support team, whether it's a partner, it's a friend, whatever it is, because at the end of the day, I can't expect you, Whitney, to read my mind to know how I'm feeling. Because sometimes it may not always be physical, where you can actually see in my face that, you know what, Tanya's having a bad day. It could just really be mental. And even then, because I've gotten to the point where I can be having a bad mental health day, but you would never know, because I will laugh the same. I'll text you the same. I'll do everything the same, because I'm trying to suppress that feeling, because I don't want to have to essentially burden a person, or I don't feel like even having that conversation. But again, effective communication, because it's going to be key. And if you are a support person, you want to be able to listen to our concerns, because too many times, I remember in school, I forgot what it is, they say there's a difference between listening and hearing. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference. So too many times we're listening what somebody's saying, but we're not hearing what they're saying, and then that's where the breakdown of communication, the breakdown of support can come about. Because again, we have to be able to listen to our concerns, so that we can also, like you would say, validate our feelings. You understand what I'm saying? Validate our experiences. You know, you can, if you have someone who may be having other health issues, accompany them to their appointment. Something as simple as that. It may not seem that it's important to us, but just simply accompany me to my appointment if you can. Because of course, you know, we work, schedules can be messed up. But even if you're not able to accompany me, show interest, ask me questions. At least for me, that's what I would like. You know, ask me questions about, how are you feeling today? I saw something before we started to record. Someone said something as simple as, can I bring you coffee or tea? You know, I'm a tea girl. You know, can I give you some coffee? If you see I'm working late, or, you know, whatever it is, some nice gesture to show me that you are in tune with what I'm doing, you know, provide that emotional support. That's a big one, Whitney. That's a big one when it comes to our emotional support. You know, when we have that encouragement, and I say from our partners, but there's some of our friends. Because for me, I have friends that I categorize them. Like my support system is categorized into who I know I can call and right away when something happens. Who I know, you know, may have the capacity to deal with me about something else. And, you know, it has to be that way, because for me, I had to learn the harder that we can't expect our friends, family, supporters to show up for us 100% all the time. Or like I often say, I'm not going to find a me in somebody else. You're not gonna find a you in the way how you may show up for someone. It's not going to be how someone shows up for you. And that I battle with that. I'm like, you know what? I'm here. I'm putting you as a priority. I'm doing X, Y, Z, the job, the partner, the support, whatever you are. But realizing that we have to meet people where they are, accept and acknowledge, because it's a two-way street. I can't expect support from an individual if I'm not advocating or I'm not expressing why I need your support, or this is how I need you to show up for me. And that was a big one for me. After coming in different relationships and in whatever it is, I just realized that I never really told this person or my manager, my friend, whatever, that this is how I want you to show up for me. Sometimes I just want to call you and talk. I don't want no advice. Just listen. Sometimes you just need a listening ear. Again, I want you to just follow me to my appointment. Don't ask me what's going on. Just, I'm going to come with you. I'm going to hold your hand, because you need that physical support. It's going to mean a lot. So I think when it comes to supporting, again, listening, and I want to talk about advocating really quickly. And I'll share a story, because my sister, almost 14 years ago, which is crazy, she had my first niece. And I always tell this story. This is how I became a doula on XYZ. And she lives in Canada, but she came to visit me when I was living in New Jersey at the time. And, you know, she was pregnant with my first niece, and we went to the malls, one of the biggest malls in New Jersey at the time. And we were walking all day. You can go to that mall at 8 o'clock at midnight. Like, you can spend a whole shift in that mall. And she just said something random about, oh, I haven't felt the baby kick today. And let me just tell you guys how naive I was. And I was young, so don't judge. But I said to her, oh, the baby's probably tired because we've been walking all day. No, that was one of the most dumbest thing. Again, I was like 18, 19, but still, I mean, I was still, you know, and I was like, you know what, again, trying to be an antique. We become with different excuses for why something is not the way it is. And I'm like, you know what, yeah, she's probably just tired because we've been walking all day. I said, maybe she was kicking when we were walking. We just didn't feel it, right? We got to the apartment and she said, no, something is strange. Like, you know, again, baby's not moving. So we call up my mom who was back home in Antigua, and she's like, no, this is not normal. You need to go to the hospital ASAP because it shouldn't be that way. So, you know, I called my uncle. We went to the hospital, and of course, she's pregnant. So, you know, priority to labor and delivery. And she started leaking XYZ fluids. Man, she was 21 weeks pregnant. So we know a baby, the likelihood of a baby surviving at 20 weeks it's very, 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 very slim. And I remember, you know, going to the room after they had got her checked in, and the doctors came in, and they were all male. One of them, you know, and they were like, you know, well, you have the 50-50 chance of the baby surviving. So we're thinking we should terminate. I kid you not. Well, let me tell you,
At 50-50?
that could be a whole different podcast, because every time I think about it, I get so upset. They said we have a 50% chance of the baby surviving. But you're telling my sister that we should go with the termination just because you think, again, 50-50, not 100% that it's not going to survive. 50-50. We have a chance. And I remember
a good chance.
Yeah, I remember seeing the look on my sister's face, Whitney, because again, you're already traumatized. So I'm like, okay, what's going on with my body, my baby, X, Y, Z, and you're telling me I got a 50-50 chance, but let's just terminate because whatever. And the confused face, I wish I could be able to put it into words, because I still can't 14 years later. And I was like, you know what, she's 5 years older than me, but I'm always the younger, the bigger, younger, older sister, whatever. And I said, well, first of all, we are faith-based people here. If we got a 50% chance, we're going to go with the 50%. And then let us choose what we want to do. And if it doesn't work out, then that's on us. And they were looking at me. I said, yes. And they're like, who are you? I said, I'm her sister. Because one thing about me, I don't play when it comes to my sister. So then in that moment, I didn't realize that I was advocating for her then. Right. So I said that to say, because long story short, my niece, she's still here. She's alive. She's about to be 14 in May. But again, she spent her first year in the NICU. But again, that point, I think in that moment, I realized, you know what? I am an advocate. I don't have to be. I think my idea or definition of being an advocate was you had to be a professional. You had to have a PhD. You had to have whatever degrees or experience. So something as simple as that. So if you are a friend, sister, coworker, whatever, and you have a friend who is going through something health related, or it doesn't matter what it is, listen to when they're talking so you have the information so you can advocate on their behalf in the moments when they're in distress. At least, you can be that trusted individual to communicate their needs to someone else. And it's why, as a doula, I often tell my clients, I'm not here to speak for you, but I can advocate for you. I'm going to make sure you have the education or the information so you can make your informed decision. But I'm just here to guide you and, of course, to be your advocate. Because too many times, especially as Black women, for me, I'll use it as an example. Like I mentioned throughout the entire episode, my migraines, my GI issues. For the last 2 years, I've been trying to get an MRI. Haven't. I've been trying to get different tests done to see what is causing my migraine, because, it moved from mild to now severe. There's no in between to me. Once a migraine comes on, that's it. I'm done. And they keep telling me, I'm going to put you on this medication. I'm going to put you on that medication. And I'm like, okay. At the time, because I was so desperate to be, and this is a lesson, I don't want you to be desperate when it comes to your health, but because I was so desperate for relief, I decided to take these pain medication. But I'm like, I'm too young to be on these medication. Granted, again, depending on what the issue is in your life, whatever your illness is, of course, you may have to be on medications for the rest of your life. But I'm thinking, when I'm home in Antigua, my migraines aren't severe, or I don't even have a migraine at all. That's not to say, I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Whenever I travel anywhere, I'm not experiencing a migraine unless it's induced by myself. So I'm thinking, I went to see a holistic practitioner, because at this point, the medical doctors aren't really listening to me. You're just telling me, oh, take this medication. Oh, you're stressed because, you're working full time, you're in grad school. I'm like, I've always been stressed. I've always been a student. So at this point, it has to be something else. And I went to a holistic practitioner. She told me, try cooking your food with like distilled water instead of using the water from the tap. Like, she was giving me different alternatives, which I have. And I have still an improvement, but again, it's not a cure, right? And I remember and I always tell people, when you go to the doctor, have your list of questions. Because we know the patient provided that timing when it comes to a doctor's appointment is not more than an hour. You probably wait an hour in the waiting room. And then when you get behind, you're talking to your doctor or nurse practitioner for like 20 minute stops. Excuse me, right? So you have to be able to know about your body, know what you're needing, and speak up for what you're needing. Because for me, it wasn't until I'm like, okay, here we are now. I'm sick and tired. Like, I had to get real Antiguan on my I had to get real Antiguan on my doctor, because I'm like, okay, we've been doing this for a year and a half now. There's no change. Whatever medication you've been giving me, it works for at least a month. And then after that, I'm back to suffering. I cannot continue. I have a life to live. I have things to accomplish. And it wasn't until I actually became more assertive. All of a sudden, I'm getting all these tests done. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm like, what? Again, like I did an episode about health screenings we should be making time for. Because sometimes we're just going to a primary care provider. They're doing some blood work. Oh, everything is fine. Or maybe your cholesterol is high. And that's all they're telling you. They're not telling you about lifestyle changes. They're not telling you about checking your thyroids. They're not telling you about, doing a liver panel. They're not telling you about these things. So it's important for us as individuals, male or female. We have to start learning about our bodies. You talk about the journal, get a healthcare journal. That's what I do. I have to document every time I get a headache, what time, what probably may have caused the headache, because my migraines are they're not caused by any aura. It just whenever it feels like coming. So I always recommend to even my friend, let's keep a little book. Could be a small book, doesn't have to be a big book, and write down whenever you feel some type of way. It doesn't matter if it's a pain in your finger, Whitney. On this day, I had a pain in my finger. It lasted on a scale of 1 to 10. It was a good 7. Because again, we're living in a society right now as Black women, especially in the United States, we know our pain tolerance. Oh, Black people don't feel pain.
We got thicker skin.
And I was just told that yesterday, oh, your skin is tough. But you know what? I didn't want to be, I was like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Like I literally got that yesterday, but I had to be patient, Tanya, not really like the public health Tanya, because I'm like, okay, I know that, but let's not do that. But anyway, again, we have to really speak up for ourselves. That's why, again, that whoever's a part of our village, Whitney, I'm not, again, you categorize how your village is, but there should be at least 2 to 3 individuals that you can trust, essentially, to give certain information to, because when you're not in the position to even advocate for yourself, they can do it for you. Because we know when it comes to healthcare here, we as Black women, I'm just going to say, we are often taken advantage of. We're not always heard. Case me. I'm an example. I had to literally get overly assertive in order for me to get certain tests ran on me. Because what they didn't think, they was, oh, you know what, it's just you're stressed out. Or then they would ask me questions about, oh, what about your income? I said, we're not talking about that. That should not, like, I remember the first time she asked me that question. I'm like, it doesn't matter what my income is. We already know, again, some people were living in poverty or living check to check, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the circumstances is. Run every test. Treat me with the respect that I so deserve, not because of the color of my skin. So it's very important. Again, I used to be a person, I was scared to advocate for myself. I was scared to speak up to my provider because I didn't want to be that person. Because again, you got to deal with racism, especially if they aren't people of color either. I'll say that. For me, especially if they're not people of color, I often feel like I have to perform for my doctor. So there've been many times I've been to appointments with me when I have questions that I wanted to ask, but I'm like, no, let me just sit here and just let them do whatever and tell me whatever and keep it moving. And I said, no, I can't do it anymore. So if you never take away anything from what I say today, speak up for yourself, have that list of questions that you need to ask, whether it's your therapist, your chiropractor, it doesn't matter who it is, have that conversation, because we're seeing a lot when it comes to patient-provider care, that the time spent with your care provider is very limited. What can I do in 20 minutes? I can spend 20 minutes telling you how I am today. Yeah. Before even getting to why I'm here, So it's very important for an individual to advocate for themselves, but have that support system that can do it on your behalf. Because you could be someone who maybe, shy, or you're not as assertive as some of us could be. So you definitely want to have someone who can support you. It's very important. Again, that listening and hearing aspect of life, it's very important. I know I said a lot because I'll be talking. I can talk.
Yeah, no, it's good. My last question is, share with us what the mantra or affirmation that you are relying on in this season of your life is.
And that's a very good question, especially today. I've been living by this mantra. I'm going to give you 2. One is perseverance is key. Because when I've been through so many life experiences and I felt like giving up, for some reason, I don't know what that word, it just says perseverance is key. Your resilience. So you just got to keep persevere. Like we mentioned in the episode, you got to restructure your model as to how you're going to go about your life. So perseverance is key. But my main one is nothing happens before it's time. Because I think about where I am now in my life and where I was. Like even when I failed out of nursing school, I thought my life was over. And I had to pivot. And then I found public health and became overly in love with the field of public health. And I just remember that the me now talking to you today and the me from 5 years ago, had I not been through what I've been through, then I would not have been ready to walk into the life or live the life that I'm having right now. So it's just like nothing happened before it's time. So whenever I get sad, I'm like, wow, you're 33, now in grad school, you should have been done grad school. Because I do it all the time. I'm like, you know what? No, had I been to grad school a couple of years ago, I would not have been ready to face it. Right. No. So my biggest mantra is nothing happens before it's time.
Thank you. And so where can people find you? How can we listen to Tea with Tanya podcast?
Yes, find Tea with Tanya podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, you can find it there. And you can find me at Tea with Tanya podcast. And if you want to support Scrub Life Cares, we're on Scrub Life Cares on every platform, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Donate, or just if you have any suggestions, just let me know. And I'm happy that I'm on Impostrix podcast. You are amazing, Whitney. You know how I feel about you. I call her my sister. She's my sister. She's my queen. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm very, very proud of you as well too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to Impostrix podcast today. Be validated.
Yes.